everybody, this is Monica. I haven't posted on this channel for like 800 years because I started college and it's absolutely insane. See, I'm a music major and, you know, there's always these jerks who are like, yeah, music majors, they just do their hobby for a living. That's not hard work at all. So to them, I would just like to say, you know, loads and loads of music theory homework. Loads of it. So much of it that you don't even really have time to practice your instrument, which is kind of hilarious. But anyways, so thanks to English 1B, which I really enjoyed. It was like one of my favorite classes, actually. Thanks to English 1B, I didn't really have time to read what I wanted. We read a lot of terrible short stories that were incredibly pretentious. But we also read Animal Farm and The Little Prince. And out of the two, I like The Little Prince the absolute best out of anything we read in that class. It actually became one of my favorite books, and I'm going to talk about it later, not today. Today, we're going to talk about Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. Took me ages to read this slim little book because of English 1B. Yeah, thanks a lot. No. So, Rebecca, what's it about? Most people know what it's about, actually. Rebecca is about this shy young woman who is kind of a lady's assistant. She's kind of like a maidservant of this woman called Mrs. Van Hopper. And while they're vacationing in Monte Carlo, France, she meets this mysterious widower called Maxim de Winter. And they fall in love and they get married in like 2 weeks. It's kind of crazy. But if you read the book, it doesn't seem too outrageous if you read the book and know the characters, really. So she goes there and she finds out that his dead wife, Rebecca, still kind of rules the household a little bit, especially through the presence of one of the servants, Mrs. Danvers. And it's a really atmospheric read. That is one of my favorite things about the book, actually, is how atmospheric it is. Like, the opening line is really famous. Last night, I dreamt I went to Manderley again. I think that's it. Yeah, that's the opening line. It's on the back of the book. But the entire first chapter is, like, enigmatic and interesting, and it just hooks you right away. The writing style isn't particularly fast. It actually gets pretty slow sometimes, especially at the beginning. But it never gets boring, and I think that's an especially interesting skill to have when you're a writer, is to be able to slow the pace down, but not get boring. And so I really admired that about the writing style of this book, that it was a little bit slow, but it was never boring. And it does hit a point where it does go very fast. Kind of. So the characters. I really like the narrator. She's very shy and insecure. She's not sure of herself at all. But through the book, she kind of, I don't want to get into spoiler territory, but it's kind of a given that when you have a character like that, the authors kind of want to make her or him like be able to support themselves more. So she does get a little bit of confidence, and it's really incredibly satisfying because being in the first person, we kind of feel like we are with her, like she's telling us a story. So it's really interesting. It's really fun to accompany her as she tells the story. It's really good. Maxim de Winter was also interesting. It took me a long time to warm up with him. I kind of thought he was a bit of a jerk. Turns out he has his reasons for feeling the way he does, but it takes a long time to figure this out. So you got to be patient with his character a bit. And even at the end, you're not sure if you really feel like what he does is justified exactly. Frank Crawley, one of the guys working at the manor, I liked him. He was a sweet guy. He was an awesome friend for the second Mrs. de Winter. I really liked him. Mrs. Danvers. Now, she's like the physical manifestation of Rebecca in the house. That's what I feel like anyways. Mrs. Danvers was she was so incredibly dedicated to Rebecca that she's like kind of angry. She really hates the second Mrs. de Winter for trying to take Rebecca's place in the house, even though nothing really changes because the second Mrs. de Winter is too afraid to change any of the routines or decor in the house. So it barely even changes. Oh, what next? What am I going to talk about now? Okay, my notes abruptly stop there. All right, whatever. The ending comes a little bit abruptly, but I think that that's okay because it packs a really big emotional punch. But we also have some closure because at the beginning of the book, we're given some information that makes sense when you reach the end of the book. So we kind of know what happens to them, even though the book ends very abruptly, which I was surprised. I expected something way more dramatic, but it was kind of building up, right? I was expecting something more crazy. But that's because I've seen a movie called The Screaming Skull from the 1950s. It's like a horror movie. It's a total ripoff of this book. It is seriously, it is almost exactly this book. So I kind of guessed plot points because I've seen that movie and I knew it was a ripoff of Rebecca. But anyways, okay, so I'm about to get into extreme spoiler territory, alright? So if you haven't read the book or you don't know the twist, get out now. Anyways, so it turns out that Rebecca did not die in a boating accident. Turns out she was some kind of psychopath. She was kind of evil, actually. It's like, you know, Mrs. Danvers tells a story about how when Rebecca was a teenager, she, like, a horse wouldn't obey her, so she, like, whipped it until it was bleeding. So Rebecca, she's, like, seriously evil. And when she gets married to Maxim, she basically just, like, she kind of makes his life a living hell, but nobody else knows it because she's really good at faking that she's a good person. So eventually Maxim, she, like, goads him into, like, killing her, actually. So it wasn't an accident. He actually murdered her. And it was slightly provoked, like, maybe slightly provoked. But the thing is, the only thing that kind of bothered me about that was, up until that point, the second Mrs. De Winter thought that Maxim was still in love with Rebecca. And when he makes that revelation to her, it's really kind of an interesting moment. Kind of made me want to compose some music for that scene, actually, because it was really, really interesting. It's a really interesting moment because it's like this weight gets lifted off her shoulder. She's like, he didn't love her. He never loved her. He loves me. And so she's like kind of happy at this horrifying revelation. So that's the thing about this book that you kind of have to think about. It's like, is she really reacting the right way? I mean, it doesn't seem unrealistic, but it's kind of something to think about. It's like if someone you love told you they murdered someone, even someone truly despicable who deserved it, how would you react to that? Would you immediately just not care? Kind of like the second Mrs. De Winter? Or would you need to take some time and think about it? Or would you even help them avoid investigation like that? It's really, really fascinating read. And in the end, I still don't really know what I think of it. I don't know what I would do in that situation. I mean, I don't think most people are ever in that situation, really. But it gave me a lot to think about, this book, and I really strongly recommend it. There are a few parts that are a little creepy. Maybe some people might consider them a little inappropriate. There's some gruesome descriptions. I think one part of the book has a bit of a graphic description of like a death or a corpse or something. I would recommend it to anybody like 15 years old and up. So I hope you enjoyed that rambly review. Go ahead and read this. It's very good. You might have to take a bit of the romance with a grain of salt, like I said, but it's a really good read. Fascinating mystery story. Keeps you kind of on the edge of your seat. And, yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. All right, see you later. Next time I'll probably be talking about The Little Prince. All right, see you later. Bye!